Record. Mic trigger. But mic lock. Finish recording. Button. Mic lock. Button. Is on. Double tap.
Hello folks, welcome to the Heavy Metal Iceberg Part 5. Tier 5. This is Part 3 of the Heavy Metal Iceberg. And before I get going, I want to talk about Paul Allender, who's in Cradle of Filth. He was one of the original guitarists and went on to Devilment. Devilment were after Cradle of Filth. They weren't before. There was a project which was before Cradle of Filth, but they're not ongoing. So yeah, and I'm going to start Tier 6 with a couple of Grimcore bands, and then I'm going to go and talk about a couple of prog death bands, prog death bands, but kind of prog death bands, but more sort of mathcore bands, and I'm going to talk about them very, very quickly because there is also psycho deathcore, which is psychedelic. It's basically it's mathcore mixed with psychedelic prog metal, which became just doom-core metal, and then that went to this really, really slow metal, which was like real sort of sludgy and doom, mixed with death and black metal, which a lot of us metalers don't like because it's shit and it just sounds really shit and horrible. That's the only way I can describe it. I mean, there are bands where guitarists spend a month writing and rehearsing one riff.
Mic trigger. Mic lock. Button. Mic lock. Mic lock. Button. Is on. Double tap.
So yeah, I'm gonna kind of just try and leave out bands where bands have spent a month doing one guitar riff. There are a couple of bands which I can't remember the names of that are fantastic for playing really, 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 really slow doom sludgy metal. But those bands aren't very easy to find, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to start discussing the Grimcore shit first of all. I do love me some Grimcore. I do love just a few Grimcore bands. And the reason for loving Grimcore is because it's just some of the bands, they go very experimental with it. It's kind of, they kind of lean towards the progression of it, because it's not exactly sort of death metal. So yeah, I'm going to start off with Maypon Death. Talk about them a little bit. So Maypon Death are were a Grimcore band. They came out from the hardcore punk and cross punk scene, and through the tape trading, and where punk was just getting like loud and fast and cheap. And students used to go and watch punk bands for loud, fast, cheap, and awesome. And I think it was just a night out for students, but then there was this sort of anti-political stuff that was going on through the cross-punk movement. And of course, cross-punk, through that, became a lot of the Grimcore bands, which was like punk but pushed to a whole extreme level. And it was a band, like, they had started off with the rock beat, then there was the Slayer beat, and then there was the blast beat. So a lot of these Grimcore bands invented the blast beat, which technically you can only play it so long before you literally collapse off your drum stool and go But anyway, also Napalm Death were noted for writing the shortest song in the world, and it's quite laughable. And it's great when you have Craig Charles, who obviously, the way he kind of emphasized on, he was very witty about it all. So yeah, you also had people like John Peel at the time, who was promoting all kinds of things, and he was promoting, like, John Peel was promoting Grimcore in such a huge way.
Mic trigger, mic lock, button. Mic lock, mic lock, button is on.
So I'm going to say Shane Embry from Napalm Death left the band, and he's now working on some really cool atmospheric stuff. It's not metal, but it's still it's dark, and it's kind of going along the dark realms of the music. Now, there are a few one-man metal bands that are black metal bands that I forgot to discuss. And there is a cool documentary called One Man Metal, which I definitely suggest you watch. In fact, I'll put it in a community post. Now, I'm just going to say this thing, right? Little interruption here in my own video. If you see videos in my community posts, they're videos I recommend you go watch, right? If you see a video in a community post, I suggest you go watch those videos. I don't give a shit if they're going to do well in my algorithm. It's just, instead of me trying to link to it in the description, you can go to the community tab and you can go to those videos and you can watch those videos. I will also try and link to a few other bands that I've mentioned in this video. I'll even link to a couple of projects that Shane has done, so you get a feel of what we've been talking about in this video. If that's going to help, obviously, on a huge level. Right, so the two bands that I'm going to mention are Zasta and Sanana from Striborg. I think both their projects, like, I'll start with Sanana, Striborg. both different projects, but you can see how the guy, when he's talking about them, you can see that he's changed and he's willing to progress. And I would say his stuff's progressive black metal, because he's kind of got the forest, you know, the guitars or the mist and the drums and the mountains, and I like the way he's kind of connected with nature. On, I wouldn't say it's much of a dark level. It's very, very different. Like, I wouldn't say it's kind of it's more kind of the you know, using the sounds to paint a picture of what's around us, and you know, it's painting pictures with sound. So it's more kind of but also it puts you in this atmosphere of what is there, and it goes very sort of progressive. And that was when black metal was going down a progressive route anyways. But I think this guy's so ahead of his time with it all, which is amazing, because a lot of the stuff he does is very experimental. Even before all these black metal people were going experimental anyways. So it's kind of, you know, where heavy metal should go. A lot of metalers now that kind of want to hear something new are going down the avant-garde route with the way the metal is, and more on the lines of Boris and yeah. You know, but it's, the more noisier your band is, the more that people are going to be attracted to what your music, and if you're willing to go down a rabbit hole of how experimental you're going to be, then literally that is obviously going to be amazing for you as a band, I guess. So the other band I mentioned was Zasta, and Zasta again are very experimental. They've pushed metal away, but they're just doing different things. They're exploring other ways that they could be doing dark music. So, but I think it's like how you live and breathe metal, and that's what the documentary, the One Man Metal documentary, is about. Like, a lot of people, you don't know like how they live their lives. They probably only sing about, you know, they probably only sing about how they feel. They don't actually feel what the music that they make, which is kind of when people put themselves into the music, if they live and breathe the music that they make, that kind of tells you that these bands are not to be, you know, these people, if you were to meet them, you would know not to mess with them, but also you would know the music they create there's something about them. I read something about Zasta. I read he has a Facebook page, you know, and it's like, yeah, back then he wasn't into speaking to people, but now he's got a Facebook page, and he's obviously got himself surrounded by good people, according to the YouTube comments. And that's the thing, if you're surrounded by good people, that's, you know, it's something that you need to understand. And when you watch this documentary, the One Man Metal, it is very difficult to watch and to put yourself into the eyes of the black metal the people that's doing that kind of thing. Okay, so just a few more groups before we head into tier 6. I would say, and yeah, we just got a few more tiers on this iceberg. You can tell as we're going down, you can tell that all these bands are getting weirder and more obscure, more difficult to find, or you know. So Cannibal Corpse was the next one that just appeared on my list, and the thing that I have for Cannibal Corpse is they're a straight out death metal band. I'd say they're pure death metal. They're not a band that invented death metal as a genre, but they're just like pure death metal. There's not really much to say about Cannibal Corpse. However, they did manage to break the mold when it came to censorship in music, because they were going to ban extreme metal music up to that point, and it was you see, like, you have like the Mothers Union and you have all these lawyers, and they go, hey, my son committed suicide because we heard your music and all that shit, and these bands just want to go out and make music, and what they do behind the stage curtains is their business, but technically, yeah, these bands, like, they didn't mess around, did they, when it came to the Mothers Union, and who would blame them, that's yeah. Another band on my list, and
one notification. Big Olive now. Queen Arrogant Purple Heart.
this is the name of a band, but I think they're called Extreme Fucking Terror. I haven't heard them, but from what I'm told, they've now gone their ways because they were a death metal band, and now they went to. There's a couple that went to Norse metal, and that was the way they went. So yeah, and that's the way they went. So yeah, you kind of know where all that went. So yeah, so now we've finished tier 5. We're into tier 6, I believe, and from what I'm gathering, most of the bands on tier 6 are just like, wow, we're into this already. And the first one is Dark Throne. Dark Throne are straight up death metal band. Way to say it about it, but they're just, I don't know, they've real tightened up production through all of the years, haven't they? It's just amazing. The way to talk about them is just amazing. Their side, an absolute, I can't stand their side. I just can't stand, like, this is the guy, the vocalist obviously must, he obviously, this is like the description I hate to give, but he's one of the ones where he sounds like he's being raped up the anus and literally throwing up at the same time, and it's for that I definitely despise pure death metal. I don't listen to a lot of pure death metal. It's just something I don't listen to. So there you go. I mean, I think I would have put that into like a tier 2, tier 3 category, because everybody's heard like Deicide, and yeah. Okay, I'm gonna go with the next band, like Mayhem, Burzum, freaking hell. It's like, yeah, they knew how to fuck their audience up, because like nobody fucks with Burzum. I mean, he's still in prison and he's making music while he's in prison. He's making that dungeon synth music, which is pretty awesome. But there's a cold side to dungeon synth when you know where the people that's written dungeon synth, and you know exactly where they're coming from. Like, real like disturbing place.
2 notifications. Messages. Now. Hi, Stephen.
Yeah.
2 notifications. 5:36 p.m.
So I'm gonna finish the iceberg here, because I've just got stuff to do. But this was part 3. In part 4, I think I'm just gonna have to talk about political side to black metal, because there seems to be this whole thing where bands murder their friends. It's not exactly true, but it's like one of the myths that I really want to get uncovered. And I thought, hey, let's talk about this shit in an iceberg, because yeah, let's hey, it happens, but it's just yeah. So I'm not showing the band side. Yeah, Wasted Death are another band that I'm gonna mention on this list, and I don't know what they are. It's like doom, sludge, and whatever. Very like Scytherin. They do different things, but it's like a super group. It's like this band are a mixture of other bands, and they're fucking awesome. They're just an amazing band. Their production has been tight. They're a lockdown band, because through lockdown they were producing stuff. They were actually producing stuff, they were writing stuff, and their production is like freaking tight. It's like the tightest shit you've ever had. They have, the mixing is just, I mean, it's like mixing in metal is just rough, man. I hate mixing metal tracks, because it's just like when you can't rush a metal mix. It just doesn't, we're not working with dance music where we can just splice its bits here and there and add side chains to kicks and basses and add a little compression. Hey, it's done. No, my friends, no. We have to listen to things in metal. We have to listen to things. And I think they must have, from what I heard in their interview with Wasted Death, the bass player mentioned that, I can't remember if it's the bass player or the drummer. One of them said, we have an extra pair of ears to mix. And you know, you can tell they have 2 extra pairs of ears, because with metal, you have to know what frequencies to mix your guitars. And what I like about Wasted Death is the nice low frequencies to give that sort of sludgy guitar sound in the mix. I'm just going to talk about Wasted Death for the rest of this video. The vocals are nice, and you know, the bass is sort of punchy like you would hear from a punk band. But that's what I like that personally. I like that. I like that it's got a few rough edges here and there, but you have to listen to them very hardly. You can tell. But I love the amount of effort that band has gone to. I mean, we find it difficult to find music now, and I think APF Records has just been putting out some real good stuff. In fact, no, APF Record has been putting out good stuff. Good stuff. They have been putting out good stuff. They are just an awesome label amongst other labels that I've been checking out. But those labels aren't metal labels. So when I do the dance music, well, the EDM iceberg, I will come to those labels. But man, oh man, the production is just like one of the things that you have to talk about. Like when you hear a band, the production is just one of the things. I mean, I speak to quite a few people in the metal community, and they're like, the one things that people hate mixing is guitars. And I'm with you. I hate mixing guitars too. I really hate mixing guitars. I'm a drummer as well, and if you get a drummer mixing a guitarist, it's like fucking hell. It's two hamsters in a cage. It's like, we drummers, we say the guitar's not loud enough, and then it's like when you hear, and when you have headphones on, right, the thing that you hear too much of or too less of is the guitars. And we drummers, we love turning the guitars down. It's one of the things we do, because all you can hear is the guitar in the mix, and it takes over the drums. I am going to say that because I'm a drummer. I'm going to say it. And it's one of those things, but it's like you know, and we're always shouting at sound technicians, you know, and it's like last Sunday the keyboard was too loud, and it's great when people agree, but I've been in bands where people have gone, that's not too loud, I can't hear it. What do you mean you can't hear it? Yes, you can. I can hear it. There's too much of you in the freaking fallback, you jerk. Oh, really? Sorry, that's on the live stage. On the stage, man. But in the studio, it gets worse, because you get guitarists going. When you've played with guitarists, I mean, the amount of fun I've had with guitarists in the studio, arguing over how loud their guitar is over how loud my drums are, and how loud their vocals should be, and oh well, this is overriding, and there just isn't enough bass. I said, well, if there isn't enough bass, why don't you just turn the fucking bass up, you prune, and turn everything else down, and there you go. But my tutor told me off for saying that, because they were like, oh, well, everything should be even in the mix. Oh, gosh. Anyway, I actually sort of went into another room when they were mixing it, and then everyone got pissed off with me, but I was bored at that point. And I really was bored. Mixing is so boring. It's just don't go to recording school. Please just don't. Just don't go to recording school. Just hear me ranting about production in music, and that should tell you a lot. I mean, when you hear certain like indie bands, like I used to listen to, I had this moment where on SoundCloud where I would just have like musical production porn where I would search, and this is when SoundCloud was good, and they had all the recommended bands at the top. So say for example you listened to a rock band, an indie rock band that you knew. Let's just say you heard them. Well, SoundCloud would recommend all the good stuff at the top, and then you would go and listen to them, and the amount of times I would comment on bands going, you need to work on your shit a little bit more, and then you get all the douchebags replying to that going, why we love the way it sounds. I'm like, do you really? Wow, that was an EP, but yes, but the reason you put EPs out is so people can tell you. You know, I mean, yeah, you're going to upset people, but I mean, like, take Chicken Hawk, for example. I went from absolutely... pondering over their demo for like months to absolutely freaking loving their demo. And do you know what I like about Chicken Hawk's demo tracks is that they are freaking raw. They are rough around the edges. They're just... there is actually a moment where on Kenosene where the guitar solo goes real off the wall for like 3 seconds. There's like a bum note, but it's brilliant. It's just, it gives the feel to that tune. And the track's actually longer than the album version. And I actually heard Chicken Hawk's album before it went on Spotify or anywhere. And yeah. To be honest with you, the album is very polished. But well done to them, you know, because at the time when they did that album, they were sort of holding down jobs and things. So if you can polish an album, they seem to sound better live. I don't know what they're doing now. I don't know if they've split up or what, but you know, I think the thing with independent metal bands, you know, if you're doing a demo and it isn't rough around the edges, then you're not working hard enough. Now, if you've done a polished demo, well done, right? Then your album's going to sound way better. That's what I always say. I mean, I've heard demos where they're very polished and their albums even polished. I've heard that, and to me, the band just, when they can't play live on stage, and I'm saying the truth. I've seen these bands. I knew a metal band, and they were very good in the studio, and they were amazing in the studio, and they were a death metal band. They were really good in the studio. The musicianship was fantastic, but just on stage, they were just really sloppy. I knew someone who saw them and they were just like, oh, you want to go see that band? I wouldn't pay, it'd be a waste of money. And I was like, I know those kids in the studio, they're pretty cool. But it's just a shame when that happens. But I think they had an amazing light show, and I think they had a really good fan base. But they were just, I don't know, they're just in the studio. They were good in the studio, but not good on the stage. And I don't know, the fan base was kind of, I had a loyal fan base, so they must have been doing something right. But my opinion is I just don't like mixing other bands' material, because there's always something that I'm not happy with, you know, on a personal level. And I remember explaining to my tutor, like, we did a mix. There was one group that did a mix in the studio, and another group that mixed a band on Cubase. And my tutor said, "Why aren't you happy with that?" And I said, "Oh, I just think if I put this effect on that, it sounds too dry and there's not enough wetness. You know, and I want to pan him a bit more to kind of push the vocal back, because the song isn't in your face. You know, the vocalists don't really, you know, they don't need to be in your face. You know, the drummer, I'm going to put the drummer a bit more and give him some room." And I was playing around with effects, but also I just thought, and I liked the song that I was mixing, but because it was a blues track, I just felt like, you know, personally, you know, that was just you know, where it's at. And I'm going to finish this part because there's nothing more to say on this iceberg just yet. I'm doing a tier 7 and 8 probably after I've done this, and talking about a few more bands, I guess. But yeah.
2 notifications. Messages. 16 minutes ago. Press home to open. Mic trigger. Mic lock. Finish recording. Finish record.